Halo teman-teman millennials, kembali bersama saya Rehia Surbayang di acara Ambassador Talk. Pagi ini kita bersama Dubes Uni Eropa untuk Indonesia, Mr. Vincent Piquet. Pada hari ini kita akan membahas mengenai topik terkait perang Rusia dan Ukraina. Ikuti terus bersama saya, Rehia Surbayang. Okay, good morning, Your Excellency. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks a lot, and yourself?
Nice to know, thank you, I'm fine too. And so we are go to our first question. We know that this past week is very the topic about Ukraine and Russia war is very hot trending topic in the world. So what is the European Union views on this?
Our very firm view is that the Russian invasion of Ukraine is a totally unprovoked and illegal aggression against a sovereign country with massive military force, which in itself cannot be accepted. But moreover, what we have seen over the past couple of weeks is a tremendous damage done to civilian life in Ukraine, with many civilians killed, targeted, civilian objects targeted, schools, municipal buildings, hospitals, private housing, etc., etc. And we see a tremendous humanitarian crisis in Ukraine right now. So we totally reject that behavior, and what we want from Russia is that it ceases fire. It started this war, and it has to end this war. It ceases fire, that it withdraws its troops from Ukrainian soil unconditionally, and that it comes to the negotiation table in a sincere manner in order to find a negotiated solution for the long term.
All right. Okay. So we know that the West country has imposed some sanction to Russia, especially in the economic sector. So could you please elaborate a little about this sanction, and if there in the near future will be some more sanction added to Russia?
We have decided as European Union a package of sanctions against Russia that is unprecedented. It's not that we like to do that, but we had to. And it was our only means to directly aim to undermine the financial and economic basis for the Russian warfare. What are these sanctions? First of all, sanctions against people. Almost 800 people who work in the Kremlin or are closely connected to the Kremlin in the private sector, and who in one way or another support or benefit from the war. We did so in Russia, but also in Belarus, by the way. Secondly, economic sanctions against firms, against enterprises, against factories, against the financial sector of Russia, to cripple these companies and thereby undermine the war effort. Now, we have isolated Russia banks from the international SWIFT money transfer system, for example. We have banned Russian planes from our soil and from our airspace. Many other countries have done exactly the same, by the way. All in all, we are seeing important impact also in the financial sector. The international credit rating agencies can't do business in Russia any longer. And it means that basically Russian assets are unsellable, both domestically and certainly worldwide. And so that is massive. Is it enough? We will have to see. We see the impact very clearly. We will have to see how this further develops and will take effect in the Russian economy, and we will continue with these sanctions as long as is needed, as long as our goal is achieved, and our goal is to get the Russian troops out of Ukraine and to get a genuine peace settlement process in motion. Can there be more sanctions? Certainly there can, but let's not speculate on that.
All right, thank you. Okay, so we know that you have visited Europe recently, and there was a meeting with NATO, G7, and they are talking about Russia and Ukraine. So can you please tell us what is the result from this meeting, and what have been decided to Russia?
Indeed, there was, to be very precise, there were three summits, three different, distinct summits happening in Brussels in the space of 2 days, and the European Union summit, the NATO summit, and the G7 summit. And in many respects, Brussels was proving its reputation of being the diplomacy capital of the world. The result, let me speak of the EU summit. The result is very much, first of all, a political confirmation of our very strong support for Ukraine, the determination to pursue the diplomatic track for getting an end to the Russian aggression. You know that there have been 2 votes in the UN, United Nations General Assembly, that have, with a large majority of countries, 140 countries, told Russia that this is just not on and it has to end. Now we will pursue that multilateral action at the diplomatic level very firmly. So that is one track. The second track, a confirmation that we want to help Ukraine in a few ways. First of all, financial help. We have granted a 1.2 billion euro loan, soft loan, for Ukraine, basically to help the government to keep itself running, to pay the salaries, and to provide social help, and etc. That's one. Secondly, we have provided as EU for the first time ever support for the defense forces of Ukraine, of a third country. Never done that before, but clearly this unprecedented case of aggression on our doorstep, next to our member states, so we have 5 member states bordering on Ukraine, was something that made that defense support necessary. It's defense, it is not of offense, but it is support to the military of Ukraine to defend its country. And the amount is 1 billion euros. And the last very important support for Ukraine is humanitarian. You have seen the crisis in the country. The images are there for everybody to see. Cities under siege by Russian forces, totally locked up, no running water, no electricity, no food, no medical aid, and so on. More than 7 million people inside Ukraine displaced, can't go to their homes, their shops, their livelihoods destroyed. So there is a massive need for humanitarian aid, and the EU has given that. In terms of money for humanitarian support, but also by saying to the Ukrainian citizens who have to flee the war, they say, you are welcome in the European Union, our door is open, you can come and stay with us, receive shelter, receive medical aid, get a job for as long as needed, get schooling for your kids, and so on, and that for a year possibly even longer, depending on how the crisis unfolds. So that is a major offer, and 3 million Ukrainian refugees have already come to Europe, received by, particularly, of course, in the first census, the neighboring countries of the EU neighboring on Ukraine, Poland, Hungary, Slovakia, Romania, and Bulgaria. A massive burden on those countries, of course, which they cope with an absolutely great political and human commitment at the level of governments, but also at the level of the citizens, of the communities. And we've also activated our internal system within the EU for sharing out the burden of accommodating and sheltering the refugees across all 27 member states. That is happening. Difficult job to do that, of course. 3 million people all of a sudden in the space of 4 weeks, to make sure that the distribution of help works well. But we are doing it, and we will continue to do that as long as it is needed. Let me say, you mentioned I was in Europe. I was in Europe twice in the past weeks, and I was so much struck by the involvement of citizens, European citizens, not just politicians and diplomats, in this crisis. And you could feel it in the streets of Europe, the sense that we must do something. Our security is at stake, of course. If you have an aggression happening on your doorstep, then, of course, the first concern is about our security and continuing peace. And secondly, we must do something to help the Ukrainian refugees. And that was fantastic feeling, I think, and very motivating to pursue our work.
All right. Okay. Let's get back to the sanctions. We know that the West has imposed some sanctions to Russia, and Russia responds to the West. Like they are talking to selling their energy in the just ruble, and then also thinking about to use Bitcoin. What is your opinion on this?
I have no particular comments on it, other than the rational comment is that the contracts for these deliveries specify the currency in which it is paid, and the EU clients will obviously insist on the respect for the contract.
So, could you please elaborate more in this topic? What is the impact of this war in the energy for the European Union?
Well, let me put it this way. First of all, we knew all along that we were too dependent on Russian supplies of oil and gas. We knew that for a decade or two already, and already before the crisis happened, we had set in motion our new energy policy, which essentially is about boosting renewables, diversifying supplies, and energy efficiency. These policies were already in motion, but now, of course, it has become very, very urgent indeed. We want to get out of that dependency. We want to get out of the situation where we were repeatedly in the past, where Russian supplies of gas to us were used for brokering, for blackmailing us into one way or another, the EU as a whole or individual member states. And now we are determined to make a radical change in our supply systems. By the end of this year, so before the European winter starts, we want to make sure that our gas reserves are full, our stocks are full, so that we are ready for whatever may come. Secondly, we're buying gas and LPG from other providers than Russia at the moment. And thirdly, we will work very, very hard on the boosting of the renewable sector and of energy efficiency. And that is still developing, but let me tell you this, with the current political crisis and security crisis on our doorstep, we know that we have to go this way and we have to do it fast. And there's no other way about it. We know it will cost money. It will increase, at least in the short term, the energy prices and the electricity prices in Europe. We accept that fact of that likelihood. We will subsidize lower income households who suddenly face an energy bill that is double even of what it used to be. We will support companies, particularly small and medium-sized companies, who would go under because of the higher electricity bill unless we give them a little bit of help. So we have all these measures in place, and in order to make sure that we can make this change in a sustainable manner.
All right, that is in the energy sector. So what is the impact on the economy widely, like in the European economy?
Well, it's an impact on the European economy as also for the international economy. But nobody can escape this, and the Russian invasion has upset the whole notion of sustainable recovery from the COVID pandemic. The pandemic is still there, but we've almost forgotten about it because of this, and that is, of course, impossible for policymakers. So we have to get our return to this sustainable recovery drive. We will face a loss of GDP in Europe as elsewhere. Impossible to predict exactly how much it will be, but the very fast growth that we saw in the EU last year of close to 4% GDP growth, that is under pressure, evidently. We see inflation pushed up. It was already high as a result of the other economic factors, but definitely the energy prices add to this now, something which also other economies outside Europe will not be able to escape. So that is the economic impact for Europe right now. The second big dimension, of course, is helping 3 million refugees that have come to us. It's 3 million now. How much will it be? It all depends on how long the war lasts, but it could easily go up to 6 or 7 million in this very short term. So, and that is a tremendous bill, which we somehow have to pay, but we will do that. We will find the money.
All right, thank you so much. So let's move into G20 presidency in Indonesia. We know that some countries has already says that we have to ban President Putin to coming to Bali, Indonesia, and attend the G20. So what is your view on this? Are you agree that we have to stop President Putin to come to Indonesia, or?
My first comment is that we want to support the Indonesian presidency wholeheartedly. This is the first time that your country hosts an international platform of this stature in this way. So it's a wonderful opportunity. And the EU is totally committed to making this work. Bear in mind that we have a very sizable presence in the G20 with 5 of our member states, Germany, Italy, France, the Netherlands and Spain, plus the EU in itself. So we have a critical mass to bring bring results and deliverables and input. So that's one. The theme of the G20 presidency, recover together, recover
yes,
stronger. Of course, it's under pressure from the war. If you just start with the first part of the theme, recover together, we have to have the simple observation that Russia is not together with us, and so there is something that Russia will have to change in order to live up to the aspirations that the Indonesian presidency has put for all partners. Thirdly, specifically about the question of Russia's participation, I'm not going to comment on that in detail. I know that the Indonesian presidency is thinking very carefully about this and about the formula and what the events in Ukraine mean for the global community and for the G20. We have said from the side of the European Union that it cannot be business as usual for obvious reasons. And that it will be very difficult for us to attend meetings where President Putin is present as long as the war lasts. That is, but we leave that to the further considerations to the Indonesian presidency to be decided.
All right, thank you so much. And about this war, actually, it's not in Indonesia only, but also in the world. We know that there is some parties that is support Russia, and there are some that is like contra Russia. So, what is your opinion on this view that some parties is blaming NATO for not helping Ukraine? That's the cause of this war happening. So, what is the European Union view on this?
First of all, I fail to understand how people can support a country that wages war, unprovoked war against another country, against the UN Charter that's black and white, signed by Russia at the time. How people can accept that can be supported. That is warfare, it is killing of civilians, it is killing of destroying infrastructure, social infrastructure. Who knows, the bill will be tremendous of this war for Ukraine, but also the global bill is being paid. Less GDP growth, slower recovery for everybody, for Europe, for others. Did we deserve this? No. Does Indonesia deserve that? No. Very clear to say that there is, in this particular war, there is only one aggressor, and that is Russia. Secondly, contextual factors, NATO, etc. Now the question you should in a way ask more to NATO and a NATO representative, but let's simply say that the threat, perceived threat of a NATO enlargement to Ukraine. Can it be a reason, a justification for a war? Of course not. That is purely part of that argument is purely part of a Russian propaganda and disinformation campaign, domestically but also globally, to suggest that there was something fundamentally at issue that threatened the existence of Russia. Nothing of the sort is true. We should be very, very clear about that. Thirdly, how to go about this? I think I come back to what I said earlier on. First of all, the warfare has to stop. There has to be a ceasefire. There has to be respect for the humanitarian corridors. and there has to be a withdrawal of Russian troops from Ukrainian soil, and a sovereign country whose borders, by the way, were agreed by Russia back at the time when Ukraine became an independent country. Russia agreed to the borders as they were, including Crimea. So there is no inconsistency on anybody's part except on the side of Russia. So that is what we're after, rather than going into all sorts of artificial and disinformation arguments like we hear an awful lot of from the Kremlin.
All right. Okay. So we know that in this past days that there is a talk about peaceful solution between Russia and Ukraine. So, on your opinion, will it be long to get a peaceful solution for both countries, and what is the biggest obstacle that they have to make it happen?
First of all, it's great that these talks are happening, or happened yesterday, and possibly today again. And we support that very much. We very much hope also that Russia engages in a sincere manner, and that also it not only talks in Istanbul in these talks, but also proves on the ground that it is serious about seeking a ceasefire and a lasting peace agreement. So now I'm not going to speculate on the outcome, except to say that looking to the future, the European Union will of course be give its fullest support to the implementation of a peace agreement, of a lasting solution for the inviolability of Ukrainian statehood. We will contribute to the rebuilding and the reconstruction of Ukraine. In the summit of the EU last Friday, our leaders decided to set up a fund for an international fund, not just EU, and for money to be contributed from the member states, from the EU budget, but also from other partners. And so that is, we are getting ready for that. We hope that that moment will come soon.
Okay, so could you please elaborate more? What is the more specific in the European Union? What is the European Union doing to help this solution happen?
You mean the reconstruction?
Yeah.
Or the negotiation?
The negotiation.
We're not directly involved in these negotiations. There's a lot of diplomacy going on behind the scenes, if you like. But in the talks themselves, the principal players are Russia and Ukraine, and there is mediation by Turkey.
All right. I think we have already answered the question. And is there anything you want to add about this topic?
Well, for us Europeans, this crisis has been a terrible shock. I mean, it's been a shock for Ukrainians, of course, in the first place, but also for us. We thought that we lived after the Second World War. We thought that we had built up a zone of peace and stability in Europe, that the enmities of the past had been overcome, maybe not perfect, but still, that we could anticipate a future without warfare in Europe now.
All right. Thank you so much for your answer. And then, okay. Jadi teman-teman millennials sudah selesai wawancara kita bersama Dubes Vincent Piquet. Terima kasih setelah menyaksikan. Sampai ketemu lagi next time.